Good, great midday, everyone. I'm glad that you've joined us for our midday devotional. Today, we will have an exciting study, as we always do, looking at what I think is a very interesting yet very challenging topic. I'm going to let the participants in real quick. Uh, Bear with me just 1 second. There are four participants that, there they are, that want to get in. And I'm going to welcome all of our participants into the Zoom room. There's one, two, three. Okay, great. Okay, everybody should be in the Zoom room, and we will begin our class. And my prayer is that your day has gone good so far. The presentation that we'll do today, and I'm doing two things at once. I'm talking and I'm also moving the slides around so that everybody can see what's going on in a very clear manner. Okay, I've got it where I want it. Again, I'm glad that you've joined us today. And it's my prayer that the presentation from yesterday, as we introduce this topic of love and generationally learning to love, uh, at least triggered some thinking as we move into 2021. Uh, One of the things that we talked about on yesterday in terms of moving us beyond all of the chaos of 2020 is the ability to love and the ability to maintain healthy relationships. Uh, so, what I wanted to do today is to take a few minutes to simplify this geneogram. It's real simple, and it's a biblical concept that you'll see on your screen from Second Timothy chapter uh, 1, verses 5 through 7. A geneogram is a format for constructing a family record of information about members and their relationships spanning at least three generations. And that's what we talked about on yesterday. The biblical concept of that comes from Second Timothy chapter 1, verses 5 through 7, when Paul writes to the young preacher Timothy, and he says, I call to remembrance the unfeigned faith that is in you, which dwelt first in your grandmother Lois and your mother Eunice. And I'm persuaded that it is in thee also. So you've got Timothy generation, you've got mother Eunice generation, and you've got grandmother Lois generation. And that's why Paul says, I'm convinced that this greatness of love and this greatness of godly faith is in you because you can trace it three generations back. And he's simply saying to Timothy, therefore, stir up the gift that is in you, that gift of God, that God grace, that God image. It's already in you, and now your responsibility is to make sure you perpetuate what the parents have already and the grandparents have already instilled, embedded inside of you. Now, in order to understand uh, what Timothy is instructed to do, or for that matter, for me or you, uh, in order for us to understand, well, what is the relevance of the Geneagram? It's to provide a visual of family members, a visual of their patterns and events which may have significance. Uh, think of it as a snapshot in time, but also think of it as a picture show. Uh, and I don't know if you've ever watched like comics. you see one comic strip and then you flip them real fast and they just, and then it's almost like a moving picture. But a geniogram becomes the picture show in real time from the history of a family that is going to show not the neighbors, not the church, but it's going to show the family first. That's where you start the show, is with the family first. And then you can move into the neighborhood. And then you can move into the community. But you've got to start with the family first. And one of the challenges of building a geniogram is starting with the family, because normally that's the most difficult place for us to start reminiscing and reflecting. Information must be understood from a systematic rather than a component view. In other words, I can't point my finger, and in my case personally, I never met any of my grandparents. Uh, by 1954, when I was born, all of my grandparents were deceased. Uh, but in this geniogram, I can't just point at, well, I never met my grandparents, therefore, no. Although I never met my grandparents, my father and my mother had met my grandparents. And my father and my mother had been reared under my grandparents. So for me to say my grandparents had no impact, no effect on my life is really not true. Uh, the understanding of that geniogram also enables the family components an opportunity to reframe, detoxify, and normalize emotion-laden issues. Well, that's a painful story, because in order for me to reframe it, I've got to acknowledge this is the way it's framed. In order for me to detoxify, I've got to say it was toxic. In order for me to normalize it, I've got to say it was abnormal. And who wants to say that about their family? That there was some craziness here. That there was some drunkenness, and I don't mean alcoholic drunkenness, but there was some unhealthiness here. There were things that within the walls of the family operated as if it was normal, but it was absolute insanity. So we have to learn as we move into 2021 to move away from those things, not just in our own families, but within the events that have happened in 2020. Genograms allow the family calendar to speak chronologically. In other words, I didn't make the calendar. I found old calendars. Maybe you found old calendars that had different events, different dates, different names of people, different places. Let's say from 10 years ago, if you've ever found a calendar, and you say, oh, I remember that. Or, you know what, I forgot all about that. Well, it's on the calendar and it probably came to pass. So when we do the geniograms, it allows the family calendar to speak chronologically. This is what was going on over here, and this is how it moved to here, and this is how it moved to here, and this is how it got to where we are right now. So that's the upside of the geniogram. It allows the family calendar to speak. And one of the interesting things and one of the liberating things about most family calendars is not one identified person wrote everything into the calendar. It wasn't written by one person. Or in my present generation, like Paul is addressing Timothy, what Paul is telling Timothy in his present generation is that all of the things from your mother and your grandmother, Timothy, I want you to embrace them, but keep in mind, you didn't write them. You didn't put these things on the calendar. They were put on the calendar in a different time era by different people that have made a positive, in that case, impact on your life. Now, one of the interesting things about Timothy's calendar, his father's not mentioned much, except we know his father's a Greek. But in terms of having a positive impact spiritually on his life, Paul never once mentions the spiritual positivity of Timothy's father. But nonetheless, although he is not mentioned, it doesn't mean that he did not have an impact on his life. And that's one of the things that we just are not capable of doing. We cannot erase what is inscribed in that calendar of history. We can ignore it, but we can't erase it. So that brings us to the lesson today, to today's lesson. Having a clear picture of your primary and your secondary love languages will explain much of your past behavior. Think back over the past and ask yourself, what have I most often requested from significant other people in my life? That may sound simple, but it's a real historical question, because typically it will have a pattern to it. Chances are your answer will lie within the scope of your primary and your secondary love languages. And I'll show you those in just a second. You've been requesting that which would meet your deepest need for emotional love. But typically that ask of other people is almost predictable. Now, to the person that is new in your life or new in my life, they can't predict what I'm going to ask because they just came into the picture. But if I look back on the calendar of time, I can almost see a pattern of the ask, the expectations that helps me, at least in my thinking, feel loved. Now, when Tony Roach was up doing the God's Love Bank material, he talked about falling in love being awkward because you're talking about falling. But Gary Chapman in the 5 love languages says, yeah, you can fall in love, but it's not always thrilling. It may fulfill a need, but it's not always thrilling because it may not be what we really need. Listen at the story in Judges chapter 14. Remember Samson, and we call Samson the all-American playboy? Well, Samson kept falling in love. Well, what that means is he was getting what he wanted out of those relationships. But he really wasn't getting what he needed. He was getting what he wanted. And to him, it was a temporary high. It was a temporary thrill, but it was never fulfilling because what you'd see is he kept going in and out of relationship. So Samson had fallen in love with a woman that was a Philistine, and not even his mother or father could make him snap out of it, because he said, she pleases me. And that was his attitude about women. As long as she is given to me, I'm good. The challenge was Samson wasn't able to give into the lives of people what they needed because his attitude was absolutely wrong. Uh, One choose to look out for the well-being of other people. Samson never made that choice. Love is a way of thinking and behaving. And Samson's love thinking and his behavior was all self-centered. Uh, he was looking for pleasing or pleasure for him. And he could have cared less about other people and how what he was thinking impacted them. Love is an emotional need. The most fundamental need of every child is to feel love. Nothing wrong with that. But what every child hopefully will also process is if that's a fundamental need for me, then maybe it's a fundamental need for other people too. But if I become a self-centered person, I really don't care what the fundamental need for the other person is, as long as my fundamental need is being met. If love is absent, it will impede proper development. So if I've not received proper love, then my proper emotional, social development is automatically stunted. Uh, and if I'm not careful, I may come across other people and I can actually interfere with their development because they're thinking now that I'm in their life, life is going to be good. But what they don't realize at that present moment is, well, yeah, I'm in your life, but I'm not in your life to make your life better. I'm in your life to siphon out of you what makes, in my estimation, my life better. Now, by the teen years, a search for love possibly can become unhealthy. And that's driven by the developmental process from the parental environment, the generation before the parental environment, and that the impact that is having on the psyche of that preteen. Uh, to where by the time that new generation becomes a teenager, uh, looking for healthy love, they can find it a dime a dozen. But because their love concept is unhealthy, they can ruin what God has put in their lives as a healthy remedy to the pain they've experienced. And believe it or not, over the past 4 years, we've experienced that as a nation. The majority of the people in this country still do not know what has happened in the relationship of the presidency because they don't know how to label that. The majority of the American people are healthier, not 100% healthy, but didn't come from chaos. But you've got the person at the top who is absolutely chaotic. Now you can trace it. In fact, all of you who are online today, when we discontinue this call, I would like for you as an assignment for tomorrow's class is to find the history of Donald Trump's father and mother. Research the history, not of the president, but research the history of the president's father and mother. And you'll begin to see, my goodness, that was absolute chaos. And then you'll begin to see why he is such a chaotic person. By his teen years, the search for love became unhealthy. Remember how he treats women? Remember how he talks about women? Remember his disregard for boundaries? It was already in place because his early development emotional need for love was stepped on. And he was so damaged that when good people came along and still are coming along, he is completely inoculated against any emotions that are healthy. And that could happen to anybody. And yet the cry will be, I want people to like me. I want people to love me. I want people to admire me. But all of the actions are saying, stay away from me because I will hurt you. Now, the 5 love languages are pretty simple. Words of affirmation. People want people to talk well about them. Quality time. People really want people to spend time with them. Receiving gifts. People love, there are people more than others who just really get excited when people bring them gifts or give things to them. And it really sometimes doesn't matter the value of it. But then if that has been an unhealthy environment, value of the gift means everything. Another love language is acts of service. What do you do for me? I wash your car, I change the tires, I fix things around the house, I go grocery shopping, I cook the groceries, I take the trash out, I take care of kids, and people will go around saying, boy, my spouse does everything for me. The question is, but what do you do for your spouse? And then the final one is physical touch. It's amazing how when those things are in balance, those are the components that makes for a healthy love relationship. But when those things are out of balance, it can be a very challenging journey in this life. And what we've experienced over the past 4 years that has culminated in the past 2 months of this election is watching an individual at the top, and you can see where all of these things are skewed. And it has caused some type of emotional damage inside an entire nation. One man in the wrong position has been able to turn this country upside down. Imagine what one person in a family can do in a position of prominence within that family. Imagine what one person in a family can do in terms of the generation, the next generation, and the future generations. It's no different. One of the reasons we're talking about Jesus Christ 2,000 years removed from Jesus Christ is because Jesus came into this world with a positive practice of affirming, a positive practice of spending time, a positive practice of not just receiving, but Jesus gave gifts. He gave the gift of life. He would give the gift of bread. He would give the gift of healing. He would give the gift of consolation. You see, when you talk about his acts of service, Jesus would touch a dead person. Jesus would touch a blind person. But 2,000 years later, we're talking about the impact he had on the world. But it could go either way. I would rather say, moving into 2021, let our conversations, let our behaviors, let our goals for the 2021 upcoming year be more patterned like Jesus than some of the challenges maybe from family history, or maybe from some of the challenges of political history of the past 4 years. The only way we can begin to rectify this chaos is for us to make our resolution for 2021 to be more like Jesus. Check out Trump's family history for tomorrow, and the lesson that we'll pick up with, I think, will make more sense. I'm going to stop the sharing screen. And for those of you who are on the Zoom call, if you have any questions or observations, feel free to make those at this time. Okay. I'm checking the Facebook page to see if there are any prayer requests, and there are none here. Okay. I look forward to seeing everyone again tomorrow. Let's close with a word of prayer and just be safe for the duration of the day. Father, we thank you so much for family. We thank you for the modeling that family has given to us in life. And Father, even for those challenges that families present, I just pray that moving into the future, we're able to make resolution not to allow those challenging behaviors, those challenging events to deter us from looking forward to being better individuals tomorrow. I pray that you will bless us as we move forward in life. And I pray, Father, that you will help us to never allow the situations of the past to cause us to become stuck in such a way that we cannot enjoy the blessings of the present. Keep us safe, use us to your glory. Through Jesus, I pray. Amen. Okay. Thank you for tuning in, those on Facebook and Zoom, and I look forward to seeing everyone again on tomorrow. Okay, God bless. Everybody stay safe.
Brother Claire, I'm going to try to practice what you just taught as of today.
As of today.
As of today, yes.
Today is the day of salvation.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Love to your family.
Okay, give my love to yours.
And sisters, love to yours too.
Okay, bye-bye.
All right.